Hello and welcome to the top 4 round of the Aichi OP11 championships. We have 4 decks left within this tournament, and each is going to have one of each respected archetype. We have one Enel, one blue-yellow Nami that we saw previously in the tournament, the Bello Betty that we saw last round. Spoiler if you haven't seen the last video actually, and blue purple Luffy rounding out our top 4 decks. I think a majority of people would say half of that top cut in the top 4 is not so surprising in blue purple Luffy and Bello Betty, right? Bello Betty kind of the counter pick to some of the best decks in format, and blue purple Luffy being the best deck in format, but blue yellow Nami and Enel taking this tournament by storm. Now, you already know the matchup, so let's get into it. It's going to be blue-yellow Nami. So blue-yellow Nami with that opponent's turn once per turn of being able to make any card in your hand plus 2,000 power for the rest of the turn. We saw it in the top 16 match, is so strong, especially when it comes to small bodies that flood the field, as well as anytime a life is taken from the field on your turn, whether that's yours or your opponent's, you get to draw a card if you have 7 or less in hand, so constantly regaining hand size will always be beneficial, especially against a deck like Enel that constantly wants to take a life. Even though it is a 4-life leader, being able to use that once per turn effect to be able to reheal a life when you hit 0 in exchange for trashing a card can be so good on so many levels. This deck is one of the harder decks to play against for many players and many archetypes, especially based on what this deck is built around. We do have deck lists for both players that will show after this match, don't you worry. And I also just want to point out before we go, also Enel is going first off of the even curve. I'm not the official live stream. I'm just doing this for my own personal gain in terms of experience commentating and, getting better as someone who wants to commentate with Bandai in the future. I have the official link in the description for this live stream. Make sure to go check that out. And if you want to see more of this tournament and more of my commentary, I've got a whole playlist of every single one of these matches that I'm uploading on here. And the finals will be here soon on, if it isn't already, if you're one of the first people here, notification squad, I appreciate you. But looking at the Enel's hand, doesn't look like a bad starting hand. I think chose this, did not opt to mulligan. You've got a Frankie 2K in there, as well as another 2K in the X-Drake. X-Drake just being a great card that's come out of OP10 and is a mainstay in yellow decks. You got a couple blockers in the Charlotte Brûlée and the Sanji. The Sanji, one of the new ones in EBO2 for any of you that are in the West, right, watching this. If you have 2 or less life on that on play, draw 2 and trash 1 from your hand. A net 0 card, really nice filter for this deck, and automatic 3 of at least, I feel like, in most all Enel decks. And rounding out that hand is a 9-drop Yamato. Even though Nami, very, very nice with that leader effect to be able to combat the small bodies, the big bodies are a little bit different of a story, especially when they hit that 8,000 to 9,000 power range. For the blue-yellow Nami in their hand, I think they opted to keep this too. They've got a couple small bodies in the 1-drop Trafalgar Law. That's a 1 of in this list, if I remember correctly. Also, a 2-drop Hiyori. 2-drop Hiyori is going to be nice to get that leader effect off to draw an extra card very, very early and set up maybe a potential trigger like the 5-cost Satori that's in hand. You also have the 8-drop Eustace Captain Kidd, which is kind of a mainstay within this deck, but a card that is surprising a lot of people is 4-drop Cavendish. 4-drop Cavendish, a really nice card if it gets to stay in the turn, right? Because you get to, when attacking, draw 2, trash 1. It's a really good body against blue, purple, and green, purple, right? Already being at 6,000, and is a really neat addition as something you can just pitch off your leader effect. After Enel passed 4 turn, looks like Nami top decking the Vista is going to go ahead and play that Vista down and make sure to attach 1 to leader. You may be questioning why she attached 1 to leader, but with this 8,000 power swing, Nami, because they had 1 Dawn attached to their leader, could have the opportunity if they wanted to counter out by using leader effect and pitching another card in hand. But decided to just take the life, match the energy of Enel more than likely here. So One of the things that you do have to think about if you're Enel in this matchup on this 5,000 power swing is knowing that, okay, Nami, with being able to take a life, is going to go ahead and use leader effect, right, to draw an extra card. On curve, going in and playing the Cavendish, especially because you took that first swing from Enel. If they're playing Gadatsu, something that is very frequent in Enel lists, I will say, and is present in this one, a full play set. Playing down that Cavendish means that there's not really any removal for this Cavendish in this turn. Now that Raigo's banned, right, in the updated ban list, Gadatsu, since you are at 3 life, can't really get rid of it as easily. So the Enel going off and swinging 7 at lead is just going to be a Vista block right here. I do not mind this block. Doesn't really give up anything. And 3 is going to give Charlotte Brule, right, a blocker of their own. The Nami now, after Cavendish lives, is going to be in a really good spot. And I think top decking the Red Rock as well. Red Rock's going to be really nice when these big bodies start coming down for the Enel. You've also got that 1 cost event Gum Gum Red Hawk, which could be really nice if kind of a Sanji blocker comes on the board like in the next turn or something of the sort, and starts out with playing the 1-drop Law. The 1-drop Law is going to be a nice little pesky blocker on the field. We know that the Nami list plays a mix of Vistas and Laws. Is going to go ahead, swing 7, take a life, and with 7 cards in hand is going to draw an extra 1, a second Red Rock. I don't think that's something that you're going to complain about, to be honest, especially when the big bodies start coming down on both sides. You're on even curve, right? So you're going to play 8 cost on curve, and then after that, the Enel on 9 and up is going to continuously play down these big bodies. You can continuously answer those big bodies with a Red Rock and such. So very, very nice in my opinion. Is going to be in a commanding spot, I think, at this point, but needs to think about what they want to do with the rest of this Dawn. So is going to attach 1 to the Cavendish and go ahead and swing 7,000 power at lead. And with the Cavendish on that draw to trash 1, is going to go ahead and filter and think about what card they want to trash. Is thinking more so of the Gum Gum Red Hawk. And being at 6 Dawn, going to 8 in the next turn, maybe you're really only thinking about playing the Kid, but decides the Marshall D Teach instead. I personally like the Red Hawk. You know that the Enel plays a couple different 5 costs, and also with the Brule right there. Oh, I don't think they resolved the swing from the Cavendish, so he's got to wait a little bit. But resolving that Cavendish swing is going to go ahead and take the life, and since there's a trigger there on that Frankie and the Enel was at 1 life left, he is going to be able to play that down as well as draw the card, and then Nami is going to end the turn getting that Teach. The Teach is going to be nice because especially after on curve you play the 8-drop Kid, you can use the Teach to be able to stack a card on top of your deck and put 2 Dawn on your leader to be able to utilize leader effect on the defensive side. Really, really interesting strategy seeing Teach in this deck. It's not something that I really had on my radar personally heading into the OP11 format, but something I've really liked to see. I think on that 5,000 power swing, just went ahead and used leader effect to pitch the Gum Gum Red Hawk right there. So now Nami being a 7,000 power leader, it's going to be tough with the Dawn if they want to swing with the Frankie or not. And this is kind of one of the things that Nami has really excelled at, in my opinion, in this tournament and in this format. Just made it really awkward for a lot of players. And now that 7,000 power, I think going at the Cavendish. So just a 2K to get out of that. And now Gadatsu coming in is going to take away that Teach, I believe. I think Teach is probably the best option that you want to get rid of. I think he kind of saw the line that I was talking about of being able to set up your Eustace Kid. Now they don't necessarily have that play anymore. Now if they play the Kid, not going to be able to put any Dawn on Nami. So does find a 7-drop Odin, though. 7-drop Odin from starter deck 22, I think it is. The Whitebeard Pirates type of Ace and Newgate. You might have seen a video recently from Akailakai talking about the deck. Is just going to go ahead, instead of playing the Odin, play that Kid on curve. And with the kid, this is an interaction you need to know. If you use a drop kid to burn a life, Nami's effect goes first, because when you have simultaneous effects of Nami's leader effect and Enel's leader effect, it's the turn player's priority. So drawing the card for Nami first, and now the Enel will decide what card to pitch off of that leader effect. So very good sequencing, something that you're going to want to know heading into the OP11 format. Now on this 6,000 power swing is going to go ahead, use Cavendish, draw 2, and trash 1. Gonna pitch an Odin. I think they drew into another Odin, so not necessarily something that I think you'll see more than one in a single game, and so uses a 2K to get out of that, right? Go to 7, whether that's at the Frankie or the Enel. Now Nami just swinging a bare 5,000 power at lead. Does have off of that Cavendish draw a pudding to utilize in a future turn, so Enel really just countering out at this point is just going to lower the hand size, right? Make it not as valuable for the pudding to come in a future turn. So now going ahead on the draw, they just pitched the second Odin right there, maybe resolving the Cavendish by pitching the second Odin. It was kind of going a little bit fast there. I think both players kind of like knowing what the other is going to do in a sense in terms of countering out when to counter, when to not counter, things of that nature. Two very experienced players. The judges might go a little crazy and the casters might as well. But this is kind of what happens sometimes when you get to high-level gameplay. And so now on the Enel's turn, goes ahead and swings 5. And so with this 5,000 power swing, you know you're not going to have leader effect, but you can expect 2 swings to come in. The 2 swings outside of this are going to be Hidatsu and Frankie, and you'd have to imagine that something like Yamato is going to come in on this turn, right? Yamato, especially because you're at 3 life. I think they're really thinking about right now if it's worth taking this life at this point or just countering out. If they take this life, they go down to 3 in total. That means that the Yamato can't get rid of this Cavendish, but if they maintain life, right, they don't take this life, that means that both players combined will be at 4, and therefore the Yamato could KO the Cavendish after pitching one earlier, maybe thinking they probably don't have another one, I would think, and goes ahead and pitches the Teach, and so there goes the Yamato, is going to heal back up to 2, and now a 5,000 power swing at lead is going to fetch a pudding, and the 6,000 power lead is going to take, and might be a trigger body. It is Kiku Nojo, a very good trigger body, I will say, especially because the Enel is at 3 life or less. Is going to go ahead, play that down, and it's going to be a sticky body as well. If it gets KO'd in this game, you're going to be able to heal up a life, which is going to be insanely beneficial to you at this point in trying to elongate this game. Now going into the turn, thinking about potentially swinging the Kiku Nojo first. The big question is whether or not you swing at bodies or you pressure at lead. A lot of cards were taken out of hand in the last couple turns, and you got a couple bodies to swing with. At what point do you go ahead and use the red rock? So a potential trigger on this swing, it's going to be another Frankie right here. Is looking a little tough for Nami as the bodies are stacking up, but Nami does get to draw, and that's the 3rd Odin in their hand. Definitely something that I think they're going to think about leader affecting at this point. And so uses 2 Dawn, attaches them to lead, is going to go ahead and swing 7,000 power. Is going to go ahead and take that life. A potential trigger, no trigger, but leader effect is going to happen. Going to heal 1 life and needs to trash a card. It could be interesting to trash the kid. I like this play right here, because it's something that you're not really going to need. But with a second Eustace Captain Kid hitting the field, that's going to be that last life right there. And now with the 9,000 power lead, with the kid, it's going to be on to the Enel to counter out or block, and opts to block with the Brûlée. And now with the end of turn effect on both of the Eustace Captain Kids, just going to be doing a draw 1, trash 1 filtering system, and pitches 2 non-counter cards in the Odin and Kiku Nojo. Enel now swinging a bare 5, Nami using leader effect to go to 7, is going to go ahead and do 6,000 power, I believe, at the Kiku Nojo, right? especially with the 10. If you're going to go ahead and play something like the 10 cost Enel or 10 cost Ace, it is going to be swinging at there and is now going to heal the life after taking that KO. The 9,000 now going at the kid, just going to be a 1k counter. And now the 12,000 power on the Enel, going either at life or going at the kids, is going to prompt a block either way, and the turn is going to be over. Going to be moving on to the Nami. The Nami now with 3 swings right here, no blockers on the field, is going to kind of have to think about the math. The Enel player definitely has a ton of 2Ks in hand right now and starts out just with a 9,000 power swing. It looks like there is going to be no trigger, another 2K in hand, and is going to need to think about on here what card they need to get rid of in order to heal this life. And so pitches one of the 2K Zeus, says, you know what, I gotta keep this Enel in hand just in case I need to go for game in the next turn for an extra life, and goes ahead, takes another one. It's another 2K, so many 2Ks in hand. My goodness, so much counter at this point. And it looks like with the rest of the Dawn in terms of 4 is going to attach 4, swing 9 with Nami, just go 9, 9, and 9. Just force 3 cards to potentially come out of hand, right? 2K, 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 and then a red rock more than likely going to send an Enel to the bottom of the deck. And so there is that 2K, 2K, 2K that I told you just a moment ago, and the red rock coming in, putting the Enel to the bottom. I think that's a very spectacular choice. You kind of put your opponent in almost the same position as before, right? After you do this end of turn, draw 1, trash 1 effect off of the 2 kids that you have, to where as soon as you use leader effect, because you have 2 Dawn on your Nami, you're going to be 7,000 power. And if they want to play a 10 cost Ace on the field, there's only going to be 2 swings that are coming, a 9 cost Yamato and a 10 cost Enel. Definitely a really interesting spot for Nami, especially with all of these boss monsters on the field. Really just with that leader effect being so strong, just negating so many attacks. Now, there is an Ace that's also hit the field on this turn, and maybe the Enel is really just thinking about whether or not they'd rather play the Enel or the Ace. The Ace doesn't have as much power as the 10 cost Enel does that came in EBO2, but the EBO2 Enel is going to have to pitch a card in hand to be able to utilize its effect fully. So after the 5,000 power swing on the Enel, taking that life, the next 5,000 power Frankie swing is going to go ahead and counter, just really messing around right now, saving the leader effect to as late as possible, right? Trying to see what 10 costs or maybe potential bodies that there are on the field, right? Especially with this Enel swing, is just going to try to find a trigger body or something to help, and just passes off the turn. 3 cards in hand and 3 swings to go. You do need all 3 swings to connect without a 0 cost event in order to survive in this game, I think. So it might be a situation, well, actually, you might have enough counter to where, like, if you, after taking that first hit, right, on the 9,000 power swing. Ooh, do you like play Red Rock, or do you, oh, burning the life right here. Another kid is going to go ahead, burn that life. The leader effect was used earlier, a trigger blocker. Excellent call to be able to play that. And now the big swing coming into the kid matches the power, right? 11,000 to 11,000, and Nami is going to advance into the finals. Definitely an interesting end to the game in terms of this loop effect that Nami was able to do. Definitely kind of caught me off guard in a sense. Wasn't really ready for that. It's really interesting to see, like, the 8 cost kids, right, be able to burn those life and constantly apply pressure, but with that leader effect, just negating essentially every single body on the field. Did a great job kind of controlling that game, I think, and just overall not making it easy for the Enel to really continuously apply pressure, really showing off the strength of the Nami. We'll have to see how it does in the finals in the next video on this channel, but first, let's definitely look at these 2 deck lists. So this is the exact Enel deck list posted over on gumgum.gg, and honestly is somewhat privy to what we probably expect of an Enel build, right? Plenty of removal in the Zeus, Kadatsu, Yamato to be able to get rid of bodies, but plenty of other trigger bodies as well in the Brule, Frankie, and Kiku Nojo. The Kiku Nojo is something that I believe has really returned in lists and is honestly really good within an aggressive format such as Zoro and Bello Betty, because if that triggers and you can play it on the field basically for free, it's got a really good shot of deleting and destroying those small pesky bodies on the attack. And with that on KO effect, does your opponent even want to get rid of it on the other side? That's another big thing. The ratio is interesting as well, with Enel being a 4 of an ace, something that we saw that was a mainstay in an auto 4 in the deck is now only sitting at 3, although extremely dangerous and beneficial in this deck, being able to be a 10,000 power heal body that has rush and be able to swing as well. The introduction of Enel has kind of moved ace aside a little bit, says, you know what, there's an extra 2,000 power that I can get on this character right here on top of healing the life and gaining rush, so it just might work to my benefit. Prioritizing the kid is also really nice as well for the even curves, right? Gonna be able to, on an 8 Dawn turn when you can't play Yamato, Ace, or Enel, play this guy down and be able to just burn a life and have that end turn potentially of draw 1 and trash 1 is super beneficial for a lot of these yellow decks that we're seeing. And the word of the day is beneficial. Now here's the blue yellow Nami list. I've got this person's Twitter account linked in the description as well if you want to go follow them over on Twitter. I was actually kind of excited that they made it this far as someone that was following them. The deck having several small bodies that are very impactful, especially when you talk about Trafalgar Law and Vista, are nice little cheap 1-drop blockers that you can put on the field to get easy blocks that you don't really have to give anything up, and it's a little bit too much resources for your opponent to justify removing. You've got a handful of draw options within this deck, like the Nami. We haven't really seen the Nami in the couple games that we've watched of this deck, but being able to draw 3 and top or bottom deck 2 in any order can really help set up your hand both for the present and the future, as well as Cavendish being able to be on the attack, a net 1 card that also does hand filtering. You've got several bouts of removal as well in the Gum Gum Fire Fist Pistol Red Hawk, a couple copies of Red Rock, Nojiko, which has been an interesting inclusion in the deck, and Zeus. There's plenty of ways to thwart your opponent's plans for the pesky rush game that you constantly have to deal with within this format if you don't hit a Luffy deck. The Odin, as many people are saying, is just a generically good blue card that you start to see in a lot of different decks. I know at least Blue Purple Luffy, when it first came out, a lot of people were playing with this idea, but it fits a little bit better in Nami, even though we haven't seen it shine within any of the games. Uses Captain Kid is the premier big body option within Nami, having that ability to guarantee a burn and draw off your leader effect is super nice for the consistency, and especially at that 8 Dawn turn, your opponent may be sitting at 3 life. That on play is going to get you to 2 and be able to help start your draw 1, trash 1 filtering on that end of turn effect. The Marshall D teach another really cool inclusion in this deck building to be able to reutilize the Dawn is really nice when you're on curve, right? When you have this guy down and on your 4 Dawn turn, you play the Cavendish and go ahead and attach 2 to lead and swing 7. Like I mentioned earlier, just works so well with your Dawn ×1 on opponent's attack once per turn effect to be able to give you a 7,000 power base during the defensive stage. It's really interesting to see Nami, especially with the new reveals of like the starter decks and OP12. A lot of people feel like the game is heading in a direction where leaders are just 6k or potentially even 7k, and that is kind of the norm. Nami kind of fits that bill and will be one of the more consistent consistent ones of this time to be able to constantly do that. And it's really nice to see late in the OP11 format, as this is, I believe, the last OP11 tournament in the East before they move on to OP12, which comes out May 31st, get some limelight and to get some promise of like, okay, this is maybe where a lot of people that are interested in Nami, especially out in the West, maybe want to start deck building. It's a little bit different of a format because we have the starter decks, right? Whereas the East right now doesn't have the new starter decks coming out on the same day as our OP11. But if you walked into your local tournament and had this deck to go ahead and pilot, which is a little bit different, I will say, because we don't have starter deck 22 stuff and we're not getting that until August. So that's another thing to think about as well. You might want to switch out one of these bodies here and maybe put 4 of these here and maybe like a 2-draw blocker or something there. It's a good starting point in where you want to think. And that's going to be all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching this as soon as the video comes out, first of all, thank you so much for the notification squad, but also the final should be up later today on Sunday. And after that, we're going to be all in on doing OP12 reviews, OP11 buy list, tier list for both the Eastern and Western formats, starter deck reviews. I'll make a starter deck review video when we know all of the starter decks. I think at this point we know like 4 of the 6, so I'm just waiting until all 6 are revealed, and so much more. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.